Prologue, London. Winter of 1813. Isabella Cavendish, Countess of Ashbury, never imagined that the letter in her hands that morning would alter the course of so many lives. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Luciana Delacroix. A childhood friend. A young woman raised abroad, brilliant, untamed, and unforgettable. In the letter, Luciana asked for something she had never asked of anyone before. Refuge. Her message was brief, yet intense. Something has happened. I cannot explain it yet. I beg you to take me in. I don't know who else I can turn to, or how long I have before they find out. Isabella didn't hesitate. She gave orders, prepared rooms, and did everything a sensible woman of her rank should never do. But Isabella had never been a sensible woman. And Luciana Delacroix was no ordinary guest. Behind her arrival hid a secret that, if exposed, could destroy one of the most powerful men in Parliament, and entangle a Viscount as charming as he was dangerous. If you enjoyed The Duke and the Unexpected, prepare for a story even more intense, with an untamable heroine and a libertine who will learn that love doesn't always kneel. Sometimes, it drags you under. Welcome to Whispers by Maga Audiobooks. Make yourself comfortable. The magic is about to begin. The Viscount and the Rebel. Book 2 of the Redeemed Rakes series. Chapter 1: An Inconvenient Arrival. A lady's luggage may not always hide dresses or portraits, but the ruin of a powerful man. The carriage carrying Luciana Delacroix crossed the gates of Rivington House with the elegance of someone who had no other choice. The young woman, tall, poised, sharp-eyed, stepped down unassisted. She carried her own small travel trunk, a gesture that made several servants frown. But no one knew what was inside. Only she did, and she wasn't about to share it. Not even with her dear friend Isabella, Duchess of Ashbury, who greeted her with a warm smile and a worried gaze. Isabella set her book down as Luciana entered. Luciana, at last. Your letter left me breathless. When you said it was urgent, I thought you were exaggerating. Luciana stepped over the threshold, her nerves throbbing in her throat. Thank you for taking me in. Isabella, I know I had no right to ask, but I didn't know who else to turn to. Isabella smiled warmly. We may not be sisters, Luciana, but there are ties stronger than blood. And you've always been part of mine. Luciana? What's going on? Your letter was so vague. Luciana took a deep breath. Lying would be pointless, but telling everything, even more dangerous. I needed to get out of Sussex. Quickly. My father agreed. Reluctantly. I thought London might be safer. Isabella frowned, but didn't press. You'll stay here. With me. No one will ask questions. Luciana smiled. But the questions had already begun. And they weren't the ones Isabella feared. That night, as she unpacked her trunk, Luciana carefully took out a velvet-lined wooden box. Inside, wrapped in silk paper, was a letter sealed with the crest of a British member of Parliament. A married man. Ambitious. Dangerous. The letter was in his own handwriting. It mentioned a payment, a transaction, and a name that should never have been there. Luciana hadn't stolen the letter. It had been given to her, with a plea. Do the right thing. But she didn't yet know what the right thing was. Only that she couldn't go back. And that London, with its balls, dinners, and empty promises, would be the perfect stage to hide, or to become impossible to ignore. That night, while Luciana finally rested from her journey, Isabella met with her husband in the library. The Earl closed his book and studied her face. Are you sure you want to get involved in this? Ashbury asked, his voice low. Isabella nodded without hesitation. Luciana is my friend, Edmund. I can't turn my back on her. He watched her, weighing her resolve. So she's not just a guest. No. She's much more than that. Isabella walked to the window, gazing into the winter night falling over London. I've known her for years. If she's here, something truly serious has happened. Ashbury nodded slowly, like a man who knew he would soon have to act. Then we'll make sure no one touches her, without going through us first. Chapter 2: The Viscount, the Dog, and the Judgment. Some meetings seem accidental, others are sharpened by fate like a blade. Rhys Ashford didn't believe in grand scandals, unless he caused them himself. That afternoon, walking his dog through the gardens of Rivington, he wondered why he'd agreed to return to that house filled with rules, virtuous duchesses, and respectable conversations. Until he saw her. The young woman stood by the fountain, her back turned. Her cream-colored dress swayed with the breeze, brushing her calves. She wasn't a debutante. Not the kind he knew. There was tension in her stance, precision in her movements, and an air of distrust. It was his dog. As usual. Who ruined the mystery, leaping toward the fountain and splashing the lady from knee to hem. "You wretched hound!" she exclaimed, stepping back. "Is this standard behavior in London gardens?" Rhys approached unhurriedly, wearing his dangerous smile and his low, lazy voice. He usually waits until after 5 to soak the ladies. Luciana shot him a glare. "And after 5, does he issue formal apologies?" "Depends. Does the lady have a sense of humor or scandal?" She turned, with poise. Luciana Delacroix. Rhys blinked. The name was familiar. The face was not. And yet, something about her unsettled him. As if she wasn't there to be seen, but to see everything. "Rhys Ashford," he replied, bowing mockingly. "Viscount of Ainsworth. Dog included." Luciana raised an eyebrow. "Are you the Viscount who writes anonymous political columns for the Observer?" He smiled, genuinely surprised. "How did you know? Words smell like their owners. If you pay attention, you can tell." Rhys laughed. "You've got a sharp nose, Miss Delacroix. I've got a sharp ear. And a sharper memory." That night, Luciana locked herself in her room. She pulled out the letter again and stared at the signature she already knew. Lord Faircroft. A man with a strong presence in Parliament. A man who, according to Isabella, played cards with Viscount Rhys Ashford every Tuesday night. Luciana clenched her jaw. Her heart pounded. She couldn't trust him. She shouldn't. And yet, why did she want to see him again? Chapter 3: Secrets beneath porcelain and tea. In noble houses, smiles are served with sugar, and poison hides among the silver spoons. Lady Ashbury hosted a discreet afternoon tea, a social gesture to announce Luciana Delacroix's arrival in the capital. Nothing ostentatious, just enough to stir curiosity. The parlor smelled of jasmine. The teacups were fine French porcelain, and the conversations sharp as dessert knives. Luciana didn't bother to feign enthusiasm. "Are they always this predictable?" she murmured to Isabella, half smiling. "The cups? The questions. If you answer the way they expect, you'll survive." "How boring." Isabella pressed her lips but said no more. Then a male voice cut through the chatter. "May I join you? I heard unsolicited opinions were being served here." Luciana didn't need to turn. She knew the voice. "Viscount Ashford," she said, raising her teacup without looking. "How kind of you to bring your irreverence to tea." Rhys smiled with tailored arrogance, preferable to the cinnamon-coated hypocrisy usually served here. The ladies laughed, some nervously, others intrigued. An older woman cleared her throat. "Have you met Lord Faircroft, Miss Delacroix? You should. He's quite influential in the house. A valuable ally for any family." Luciana swallowed hard. Isabella stepped in quickly. Luciana's spent much time in the countryside. Politics hasn't been her world. Luciana lowered her teacup with grace, but her eyes were blazing. "Oh, but in the countryside, I learned to recognize rot, even when it's perfumed and titled." A chilling silence fell. Only Rhys smiled wider. "I'm afraid, madam, that my friend does not bow easily," Isabella said softly. "Not even to allies." Rhys leaned closer. only for Luciana to hear. Do you always stab so delicately? She replied without blinking. Only when the enemy smiles while planning to bury me. Rhys felt something stir in his chest. Not desire. Not yet. Admiration. And danger. All at once. That night, Isabella closed her bedroom door firmly. Luciana, what's really going on? What do you mean? This isn't just rebellion or pride. You're at war with something or someone, and you're shutting me out. Luciana looked down, then walked to her trunk and pulled out the sealed envelope with Lord Faircroft's crest. I can't tell you everything yet, Bella. But I need you to trust me. What I have, if it falls into the wrong hands, it won't just bring me down. Are you in danger? Luciana stared at her. Maybe. Or maybe he is. And he doesn't even know it. Chapter 4: An enemy in silk gloves. Some men hide ambition in speeches. Others sign it and seal it in red wax. The halls of the private political club in Mayfair were thick with smoke, deep laughs, and deals never written on paper. Rhys Ashford entered as if it were his own parlor. With disdain, a half-empty glass, and a mildly amused scowl, he joined his companions at a back table. The Earl of Ashbury, his childhood friend and now a pillar of moderate politics, motioned to him. You look more irritated than usual. Let me guess, Luciana? Rhys let out a short laugh. Am I that obvious? No. But she is anything but invisible. Rhys shrugged. She's got claws. And you look like you want her to use them, Ashbury murmured, turning as another voice joined them. Did you miss me, gentlemen? Lord Faircroft, impeccable in his frock coat, smiled like a man used to being obeyed without question. Rhys raised his glass. Faircroft, thought you were up north. Returned early. With voting sessions coming soon, some pieces must be moved. Ashbury nodded cautiously. But Rhys just watched him. Something in Faircroft's tone unsettled him. Or perhaps it was the unease his name had stirred in Rhys for days now. Meanwhile, back at Rivington, Isabella couldn't sleep. Luciana found her in the conservatory, reading something clearly not about plants. You're investigating Faircroft? I'm married to a politician. Luciana, I learned long ago that powerful men are rarely what they seem. Want to know how many bills he's blocked for his friends? How many favors he's traded under the table? Luciana nodded, unsurprised. You know what that means. Isabella closed the notebook. I do. And if what you have is real, he won't just sit back. Do you think Rhys knows what kind of man his friend is? I don't know. But if he finds out, he'll have to choose. Luciana lowered her voice. And if he chooses wrong, then it won't just be his heart you'll lose. Luciana. Chapter 5: The Dance of Lies. In a ballroom, one doesn't always stumble over a misstep. Sometimes, it's the truth that catches your foot. Lady Kettering's ballroom glittered with light, music, and secrets. The young ladies twirled like spring flowers. The gentlemen smiled as if they weren't hiding blades in their coats. And among them, Luciana Delacroix moved like a silent storm. She wore deep blue, the color of firm decisions. She knew everyone was watching her. And she didn't care. She was there for a reason. Rhys watched her from the balcony, leaning against a column, glass in hand, like a man watching a fire unsure whether to put it out or feed it. You haven't taken your eyes off her, murmured Ashbury beside him. Nor do I want to, Rhys replied. Then perhaps you should pay attention to who is approaching her. Rhys turned his head, and there he was, Lord Faircroft, with his perfect smile, flawless manners and intentions masked as courtesy. He approached Luciana with the ease of a man who believed he had a right to. She saw him coming. She didn't step back. But her smile vanished. Miss Delacroix, said Faircroft, taking her hand with elegance. The latest social scandal has a face. And that face is yours. I must say, reality is even more captivating. Luciana didn't blink. And what face does politics wear when no one is watching? My lord? Faircroft smiled. Unfazed. Sometimes politics wears the face of a woman who knows too much. On the other side of the room, Isabella left her conversation and quickly approached Ashbury. We have to intervene. And say what? That His Grace forbids anyone from approaching our guest? I want you to watch Rhys. If he moves, it means he understands. If he doesn't, he's not on our side. Rhys didn't move, but his eyes burned. Luciana, with a mix of boldness and pride, agreed to dance with Faircroft. Just one piece. Just one round. But every step was a choreographed threat. What is it you want? My lord? To preserve order. Balance. Keep the pieces where they belong. And what if someone's already moved them? Then that person will be removed from the board. Luciana smiled. A dangerous smile. Careful, my lord. Some pieces are not so easily removed. And others. Play checkmate. Rhys waited for the music to end. He approached. Claimed her with a bow that was as elegant as it was commanding. My turn. Faircroft stepped aside with a courteous nod. But his eyes didn't stop watching. When Luciana fell into Rhys's arms, her body tensed. He held her as if he could shield her from the world. But she knew he still didn't understand what he was shielding her from. Why did you dance with him? Rhys asked. To show him I'm not afraid. Well, he's lying to you. I know. I am too. Silence. And you, Rhys? She whispered. Whose side are you on? He didn't answer. But his hands gripped her tighter. And Luciana understood the Viscount was stepping into the game, though she still didn't know whether he'd be her ally or her downfall. Chapter 6: The Truth Between Allies. Sometimes it's not about what you know, but how much you're willing to sacrifice once you find out. Rhys received the Earl's invitation with curiosity. A card game, he said. Just the two of them. But when he arrived at the Duke of Ashbury's study, he found Isabella seated there as well, calm. Hands clasped on her lap. The tea was steaming. The cards were nowhere to be seen. Where are the playing cards? Rhys joked, removing his gloves. I hope you're not planning to hit me with the truth like that. Without distractions. Ashbury looked at him. Isabella didn't smile. Rhys, the Earl said plainly. This isn't a friendly chat. It's a warning. Rhys leaned back in the chair. Relaxed on the outside, his eyes sharp. A warning about what? Isabella spoke. Luciana is in danger. I know, he said in a low voice. No. Ashbury interrupted. You think you know. You suspect tension. Politics. Some old man with bad intentions. But this is more serious than you imagine. Isabella stood up. Walked to a small desk. Opened a drawer. And took out a copy of the letter. Rhys took it without flinching. He read. And the air shifted. His jaw tensed. The sarcasm vanished. Is this real? Yes. Isabella said. It's direct evidence against Lord Faircroft. Blackmail. Vote manipulation. Political favors. And that's just the surface. Ashbury added grimly. Luciana has the original letter. It was given to her by someone close to the victims. She didn't steal it. She wasn't looking for it. But now she has it, and that makes her a target. Rhys closed his eyes for a second. Took a deep breath. Do you realize the risk you're taking? Rhys? Isabella asked, raising her voice just enough. He didn't respond right away. Luciana didn't come here looking for love. She continued. She came looking for protection. Rhys looked at her, frowning. And you want me to be the one to protect her? You're close to her, Isabella said. And if you're going to stay that way, you need to know who you're protecting. And from whom? Rhys looked up. He was no longer the careless libertine. Something colder, more tempered, had taken hold of him. Does she know that you told me? No, Ashbury replied. And it's better that way. Luciana doesn't trust easily. If she finds out we're all watching her, she'll run. And if Faircroft finds out I care about her, Rhys murmured, he'll use her to destroy you too. Isabella said sharply. Silence. Rhys set the letter down on the table. Then stood up. Without another word. Are you going to protect her? Ashbury asked. Rhys stopped at the door. No. I'm going to destroy the bastard who thought he could use her. And he walked away. That night. Luciana didn't know why, when she passed Rhys in the corridor of Rivington, he looked at her as if he understood her more deeply than ever. And didn't say a single word. Chapter 7 The Art of Slander. In high society. You don't need a weapon to kill someone. Sometimes. All it takes is an anonymous letter and a half-truth. Luciana noticed the shift the moment she arrived at Lady Harrow's salon. The glances. The whispers. The forced smiles from those who, just a week ago, had welcomed her with enthusiasm. A young woman whispered to another. A gentleman lowered his gaze as she passed. And when she tried to join a group of ladies, the circle subtly closed. What the hell is going on? Isabella muttered. Furious. From across the room. Luciana feigned calm. But her back was as tense as a bowstring about to snap. And then she knew. When Lady Gresham approached, dripping with the kind of compassion that reeks of poison, and whispered. Dear. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask. It's not your fault if you've been involved with gentlemen of questionable morals. Luciana pierced her with a glare. What are you talking about? Oh. I'm not the one saying it. It's what's being said. They say a married gentleman has shown improper affection toward you. And that he's been helping you in exchange for certain favors. Luciana didn't blink. But inside. She burned. That same night. Isabella received the letter. Anonymous. Handwritten. A woman who manipulates politicians for her own gain should not be welcomed in aristocratic homes. Does the Duchess condone such behavior? The Earl read it silently. Then said. Faircroft is moving his pieces. Discreet. Sinister. Just as we expected. Isabella pressed her lips into a thin line. He wants to isolate her. Make her seem ambitious. Destroy her reputation. And then, take whatever she has left. We have to strike first. He said. And we need Rhys. Rhys had withdrawn into his own world. One no longer filled with wine or easy conquests. His days now were full of names. Documents. And political threads leading straight to Faircroft, and every night. The memory of Luciana. He told no one. But he knew he could no longer look at another woman without seeing her eyes. Nor walk without imagining someone following her. So when he saw Faircroft leaving the club and receiving a letter from a servant, he followed him. Discreetly. At a distance. Faircroft entered a discreet residence. Inside. An editor awaited him. The same editor who would publish an article in the London Herald the next day, titled Secrets of a Nameless Lady. The next day, Luciana ran into Rhys by accident in the gardens. Have you come to admire the withered flowers as well? Rhys shrugged. Sometimes it's among broken petals that the truth blooms. She looked at him. His eyes seemed more tired. More cautious. I've become the topic of conversation. In the worst possible way. London's conversation shifts like the wind. Today you're the villain. Tomorrow, the heroine. And the day after, a legend. Luciana smiled. But not with joy. In you, Viscount? What role do you play? He held her gaze. No irony. No smirk. The role of the man who doesn't intend to stand by and do nothing. Luciana blinked. And for a moment, something inside her surrendered. But only a little. That night, the article was printed. No names. But enough details. Enough for everyone to know it was about her. But before it could spread widely, Rhys showed up at the editor's office, and made him burn every copy. Who do you think you are? The editor shouted. Rhys smiled darkly. I'm the man who knows what you owe Faircroft. And the one willing to tell the Duke of Lancaster, if London wakes up tomorrow with your trash in print. The editor paled. And the scandal was delayed a little longer. But the war had only just begun. Chapter 8 Cracks in the Mask. Sometimes the greatest act of strength is letting someone see you wounded. Luciana entered the drawing room with her head held high. Even though inside, she was bleeding. The stares remained. So did the doubts. The letter that supposedly circulated hand to hand, if it even existed, had not been printed. But rumors don't need ink. Isabella walked beside her, fiercer than ever. But there comes a point where neither courage nor noble birth can shield you from disdain disguised as etiquette. You can't face them alone. Isabella whispered. I'm not alone. Luciana replied firmly. I have you. That's enough. But inside, she was thinking about Rhys. His silence. His glances. What he didn't say. Did he know something? Did he suspect? That night, she found him in the greenhouse. She hadn't been looking for him. Or so she told herself. He was there. Without a drink. Without a mask. Another sleepless night. Miss Delacroix? And you? Shouldn't you be at a club drowning your sorrows in bourbon and wagers? Rhys smiled, but it wasn't his usual smile. Tonight I have no sorrows. Only questions. She sat across from him. For a moment, the silence between them was comfortable. Then she let her guard down. Just a little. Have you ever felt like the world closes in like a fist, simply because you don't fit in? Rhys looked at her. His voice a soft whisper. Luciana, you weren't made to fit in. You were made to make the world open up. She laughed. Bitterly. I don't know if that's a compliment or a sentence. Maybe both. But there's no going back. Not after the way you walk into a room. Not after the way you make me believe I could be more than I am. She looked down. Her voice trembled slightly. Sometimes I feel like I'm at the center of a storm. And I don't know if I'm the lightning or the tree about to burn. He leaned closer. I'd bet you're the whole storm. And though they didn't kiss, though they touched only with their eyes, the fire between them could have burned the entire house down. Chapter 9: The Invisible Web. In the game of power, enemies don't always attack from the front. Sometimes, they strike from the shadows, with a smile on their lips and a dagger beneath their coat. And while Luciana Delacroix fights to survive the scandal looming over her name, others, in silence, prepare her defense. But how much longer can she endure? Unaware of the truth lurking behind her back? 1. The search for the witness. Isabella stepped down from the carriage with determined strides, ignoring the warnings of her lady's companion and the disapproval of her coachman. The Earl followed close behind. More discreet. More silent. But just as resolute. Are you sure this is the place? No doubt. The servant who delivered the letter now works in this tavern disguised as a rundown boarding house. We just need him to talk. The door creaked open. The place smelled of beer, dust, and resignation. They found the man in the kitchen, peeling potatoes. The moment he saw them, he tried to escape through the back door. But the Earl's cane stopped him, and Isabella's icy stare held him in place. We're not here to hurt you. We only want the truth. I don't know anything. I only delivered an envelope. That's all. From whom? The man hesitated. Swallowed hard. A woman. I didn't know her. She paid well. Told me that letter needed to reach someone who could do the right thing. I didn't ask names. Ashbury exchanged a look with Isabella. Would you recognize her if you saw her again? Maybe, if I saw her. But she wasn't a noblewoman. Not a maid either. She was determined. In a hurry. Scared. Too. Like that envelope was burning her hands. Anything else? The man hesitated. Then murmured. She wore a black ribbon on her wrist. And had a French accent. Isabella took a deep breath. Thank you. You've done something good. As they left, the Earl said, we can use this. If we find that woman, we'll know where the letter came from. And maybe, who she was trying to protect. Isabella nodded. And if she's in danger too, more than one life is at stake. 2. Mounting pressure. Back in London. Mrs. Weatherstone cancelled her tea invitation. Lady Bramley withdrew her promise to sponsor the charity event. And at the market, Luciana noticed that the flower sellers no longer offered her blooms. There were no letters, no public accusations, only smoke and a slow social suffocation. That night, she locked herself in her room. And for the first time in years, she cried. Rhys heard her from the hallway. He didn't enter. He said nothing. He simply stood there, like an invisible sentinel, wishing she could know that she was not alone. 3. The Viscount's move. The next day, Rhys met with 3 men in a private salon at the Rutledge Club. 2 were minor politicians. The third, a banker. I need information, he said bluntly, about Faircroft's accounts, his donations, his payments to the press, and the favors he hands out like sweets. One of the politicians tensed. Do you have a formal reason for this investigation? Rhys leaned forward, dangerously close. I have every reason. And if you don't cooperate, the next scandal won't be about Luciana Delacroix. It'll be about your names. Silence. Then, slowly, the men gave in. At dusk, Rhys left the club and spotted Faircroft across the street. He was speaking to an unknown man. And when he saw the Viscount, he offered a polite nod. As if he weren't trying to destroy the woman Rhys could no longer stop loving. Chapter 10 The Price of Silence. When the threat becomes personal, pride is no longer a shield. And those who once walked with their heads held high discover that some wars can only be won in the shadows. Luciana has been warned. And her next step might be the most dangerous. Or the bravest. 1. The letter without a seal. Luciana found the envelope on her dressing table. No seal. No signature. Just a single sheet with 3 thick lines of ink. We know what you have. Return it. Or be ready to lose everything. No mention of the letter. No names. But she understood perfectly. Her hand trembled. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She looked up. Isabella couldn't know. And Rhys. Even less. Not because she didn't trust them, but because this forced her to choose on her own. And if someone was threatening to destroy her, she wouldn't drag anyone else down with her. That night, she faked a headache, skipped dinner, locked herself in her room with the excuse of catching up on correspondence. And then, near midnight, she slipped out alone through the servant's door. 2. The Trail of Desperation. Rhys, meanwhile, had just received a report from the banker he'd pressured. Faircroft's payments had for years kept editors, officials, and even a couple of judges silent. Nothing could be proven yet. But, we've got him, he murmured. He was heading to find Isabella and Ashbury when a pale maid crossed his path in the corridor. My lord. Miss Delacroix. She's gone. Alone. What do you mean alone? Through the servants' entrance. Over an hour ago. Rhys asked no more. He was already running. 3. The Trap. Luciana reached the address written on the back of the envelope. An old house on a forgotten street in Mayfair. The door was ajar. She entered. And instantly knew something was wrong. The parlor was empty. Absolute silence. And on a table, an exact copy of the original letter. A voice emerged from the shadows. You're braver than I thought, Miss Delacroix. Or more foolish. Luciana turned. Faircroft. Did you expect me to hide? I expected you to have a survival instinct. But that's what makes you so fascinating. You're fire wrapped in silk. What do you want? Faircroft stepped closer. Unhurried. I want silence. Obedience. And if I can't have that, I want your downfall. Luciana stood tall. Then prepare for war. Faircroft smiled. I'm already in it. Rhys burst into the house minutes later. But the room was empty. Only the torn note remained. And the black ribbon from Luciana's dress. Fallen to the floor. Chapter 11 Where Truth Burns. True love is not measured by sweet words or whispered promises, but by the way someone runs into the fire to find you. Tonight, the game changes. And no one will walk away unscathed. 1. The Lockup. Luciana opened her eyes in an unfamiliar room. Dark. Windowless. Only a single iron door. Locked from the outside. She had fainted. Or been struck. She didn't know. The only certainty was that Faircroft had crossed the final line. A voice, young, nervous, slipped through the gap beneath the door. I'm sorry. Milady. I don't want to hurt you. I was just paid to watch you until your attitude changes. Luciana stood. Unsteady. Tell your master he'll never have my silence. Or my submission. The servant hesitated. And that was all she needed to plant the seed. 2. The hunt. Rhys. Mud-streaked and on horseback. Tore through London's slums without stopping. Isabella and Ashbury had mobilized their contacts. There were 3 possible locations. And no time. If Faircroft lays a finger on her, he muttered, shaking with rage. At the second site, a converted stable turned warehouse, he heard the voice. He would recognize it even in hell. I won't be silent. I don't care what they say about me. And then, everything ignited. Rhys charged. Struck down the guard. Kicked open the door. Luciana turned at the sound. Still swaying. Her dress torn. Her eyes ablaze. You? He pulled her into his arms. Tightly. Broken. You're safe. Thank God. You're safe. How did you? How? But she didn't finish the question. He cupped her face. And he said it. Because I knew they'd come for you. Because I knew what you were hiding. Because I know about the letter. Luciana froze. Silence. Her eyes filled with disbelief. Since when? Weeks ago. Isabella and Ashbury told me. I didn't say anything because I wanted to protect you without pushing you away. Because I knew if you found out, you wouldn't look at me the same. And you were right. She shouted. Pulling back. I don't look at you the same. He closed his eyes. Tried to speak. Failed. Luciana was trembling. Not from fear. From betrayal. I didn't need you to protect me. I needed the truth. Luciana, if there had been another way. But you didn't look for one. She turned. Ready to leave. And stumbled. Rhys caught her. And in that moment. In that second, something broke open between them. She looked at him. You can't keep making choices for me. I'm not a damsel who needs saving. He held her gently. I know. You're the woman I can't stop loving. And then, without plan or thought, he kissed her. And this time, she didn't pull away. 3. Meanwhile, Faircroft. From his private study. Read a new message. One of his contacts had betrayed him. Luciana had been rescued. And Rhys, the Viscount, is no longer on the right side. His secretary said. Faircroft clenched the paper. Smiled. Then it's time they all fall with her. Chapter 12. Open Wounds. Sealed alliances. Sometimes, to defeat an enemy, it's not enough to know his game, you have to force him to move a piece he cannot control. And when secrets come to light, not everyone is ready for the fire of truth. 1. After the fire, Luciana woke with a raw throat, aching legs, and a shattered heart. Rhys sat by the window. Still, watching the mist. I didn't leave, he said without looking at her. I didn't ask you to. You didn't send me away either. Silence. She sat up, covering herself with the blanket. The air between them was tense. But not cold. There was something deeper than resentment. I'm not angry you saved me, she said. I'm angry you didn't trust me. Rhys finally turned to her. And I'm angry because in the end, I didn't know how to protect you without losing you. She sighed. This isn't a war between you and me, Rhys. It's against him. And for the first time. Without sarcasm. Without irony. He nodded. And this time, we'll win it. Together. 2. The unexpected testimony. While Luciana recovered, Isabella and Ashbury went looking for the young servant. But they didn't find him. Instead, she appeared. The woman with the black scarf. She had been following them. waiting. And finally, she decided to speak. What Lord Faircroft did wasn't just abuse of power. It was a crime. Isabella approached carefully. You delivered the letter? Yes. And I don't regret it. But if I speak, I need protection. Ashbury pulled out a pen. State your name. Margot Levesque. Former governess. Employed by the Blevins family. The wife died because of a letter that should never have been hidden. And her son, now under Faircroft's guardianship, is still in danger. Isabella swallowed hard. Are you willing to testify? I will. But I need help getting the boy away from him. I don't trust the courts. But I trust you. Ashbury extended his hand. You'll have it. You have my word as a count. Isabella looked at her husband. Then at Margot. We're going to bring him down. Brick by brick. 3. Faircroft's response. That night, Faircroft's secretary handed him a short message. They've found the governess. They've spoken to her. And the Viscount no longer hides his loyalty to Miss Delacroix. Faircroft drank in silence. Then laughed. Softly. Good. Let them come. Let them challenge me. And if they reveal the letter? Then we strike back with something worse. The secretary hesitated. Do we have something worse? Faircroft looked at him. Smiled. Not yet. But I'll find it. And when I do, no one will walk away unscathed. 4. Luciana rises. Luciana appeared at the next social event dressed in red. Scarlet red. Rebellious red. Unforgettable red. Ladies whispered. Gentlemen averted their eyes. But she walked in with her head held high. Arm in arm with Rhys. And when they were greeted as the redeemed libertine and the lady who dared, she smiled. Because she knew that today's whispers were just the prelude to tomorrow's silence, when the truth finally came out. Chapter 13 Echoes of the Past. When a love story defies the rules of its time. It doesn't just awaken passion, it also stirs ghosts. And this time, a face from Rhys's past threatens to break the fragile alliance that binds him to Luciana. Meanwhile, the boldest piece on this board raises her voice. 1. Margot's testimony. Margot Levesque was received in a private room at the Ashbury estate. Isabella, Rhys, and 2 legal notaries were present. Luciana didn't attend. Not yet. Not out of fear. But because she wanted everything to be legal. Clean and final. The governess spoke with a steady voice. She told how she discovered that Faircroft had pressured Lady Blevins into falsifying documents. How he threatened her when she tried to resign. And how, after her mistress's death, the Lord took custody of the boy, with the same smile he used to hide his crimes. I couldn't stay silent. So I found a way to deliver the letter she wrote before she died. One that could clear her name. Ashbury looked at her with respect. You've done that. And now, it's our duty to make sure the world knows. Margot nodded. And for the first time in a long time, she wept. 2. The unannounced guest. That same afternoon, during a discreet gathering at the Ashbury home, an uninvited guest arrived. Tall. Blonde. Dressed in shades of ivory and pearl gray. Isabella recognized her instantly. So did Rhys. Lady Ophelia Cavendish. Rhys muttered under his breath. Luciana felt a chill down her spine. Who is she? Ophelia smiled with that kind of smile that pierces like a needle. An old acquaintance of the Viscount. Rhys stepped forward. Luciana, Ophelia and I had a brief involvement years ago. But that's long buried. Ophelia laced her fingers with false sweetness. Not so buried, it seems. Especially considering Rhys promised to marry me before leaving without a word. Luciana looked at him. Her eyes full of restraint. Is that true? Rhys clenched his jaw. It was a forced situation. There were no feelings. Just convenience. And one night in Paris. Added Ophelia. Or was that also out of convenience? Silence fell like lead. Luciana didn't say a word. She just turned and left the room. 3. Tension in the ballroom. That night, Isabella announced the Winter Grand Ball. A charity event that would gather all of London's high society. The perfect setting to publicly expose Faircroft's actions, if everything went according to plan. But Rhys now faced two battlefronts. The public enemy, and the mistrust of the woman who had brought him back to life. Isabella confronted him in private. Is there anything else Luciana needs to know? No. I swear. Then go and convince her. Because if she doesn't trust you, none of this will work. 4. Luciana and the doubt. Luciana stood by her bedroom window. Alone. She had faced threats, scandal, captivity, but nothing disarmed her like feeling vulnerable with someone she was beginning to love. When Rhys knocked on her door, he didn't knock hard. He didn't speak. He simply sat beside her. And after a long silence, he said, I'm not a perfect man. But with you, I want to be better. And if you still let me fight by your side. Luciana. I swear I'll never betray your trust again. She looked at him. Hurt. But alive. You'll have to earn it. He nodded. I'm already trying. And in that moment, without a kiss, intimacy was born again. Chapter 14 The Winter Grand Ball. There are moments that mark a before and after. When masks fall, secrets ignite, and those once humiliated, rise with their heads held high. Tonight, Luciana will not only dance. Tonight, she will set the ballroom on fire. 1. The entrance that shook the room. The Winter Hall at Ashbury Palace sparkled with chandeliers, live music, and over 200 of London's most influential figures. But when Luciana walked through the main doors, the murmur was unanimous. She wore black, pure black, with golden details, black like the night, black like scandal, and she walked alone, until Rhys appeared beside her. He offered her his arm. She hesitated, then accepted. Are you ready? He asked. No. She replied with a trembling smile. But that's never stopped me. 2. The plan in motion. Isabella was in her element. Greeting guests. Whispering discreetly to ladies. Sealing quiet agreements. Ashbury monitored the security. And Margot, discreet as ever, waited in a side room, ready to enter at the agreed time. Luciana stood by, awaiting her turn. She knew what she had to do. But then, she appeared. Lady Ophelia. Dazzling like a diamond. Wearing the most provocative gown of the night and a smile as sharp as a blade. I hope you don't ruin another ball tonight. Dear Luciana. Not all of us are as gifted at turning social events into battlegrounds. Luciana didn't take the bait. And you have a gift for turning empty promises into lingering regrets. Seems we both shine. Ophelia tensed. They'll use you. You know? Just like they use every woman who thinks she's brave. Luciana stepped closer. Her eyes were fire. And you sold yourself for a title that never came. So forgive me if I'd rather fight than crawl. Ophelia turned and walked away. But not before one last jab. Don't worry. When this is over, I'll be right where I started. You, on the other hand, might lose everything. Luciana watched her go. And for the first time, felt pity. 3. The public revelation. At midnight, Isabella raised her glass. Dear guests. Tonight, we don't only dance. Tonight, we celebrate courage. Ashbury gave a nod. A justice secretary entered through a side door. And with him, Margot. Murmurs spread instantly. Faces paled. Luciana stepped to the center of the ballroom. Some of you have judged me. By rumors. By my foreign name. By my refusal to stay silent. Tonight, I'll show you why silence was never an option. Margot raised a copy of the letter. She read it. Aloud. In front of everyone. The names. The dates. The payments. The blackmail. The death of Lady Blevins. The threat against the child. Faircroft wasn't present. But his downfall began in that very moment. 4. The storm after the thunder. After the announcement, there was chaos. Raised voices. Some guests left in outrage. Others approached Luciana with respect. Rhys watched her from across the room. She had won. But she was alone. So he stepped forward, without words, and offered his hand for the final waltz. She hesitated, looked at him. Do you still want me to see you as before? No. I want you to see me as I am now. After all that we are, and all we can still become. Luciana took his hand. And as they began to dance, the ballroom surrendered to them. They weren't just a couple. They were two flames that refused to be extinguished. Epilogue, the end of one game and the start of another. Some stories end with a kiss, others with a sentence. But the true ones end just as the next danger is about to begin. 1. The fall of the Lord. The trial was swift, public, and devastating. Faircroft was found guilty of forgery, bribery, manipulation of guardianship, and his downfall spread with the same scandal he once used to destroy others. Margot, protected and firm, embraced the child she once vowed to protect. Isabella, from the gallery, raised her glass with a subtle glance. Luciana mirrored her. And Rhys did not smile. He just exhaled. The monster had been defeated. But the world still held many shadows in need of light. 2. The decision. Luciana looked at the ring Rhys offered. Are you sure? You'll be the Viscount who married the rebellious foreigner who scandalized half of London. Rhys grinned, on the edge of something dangerous. And you'll be the Viscountess who made me change, without ever stopping me from being a libertine at heart. She looked at him. As always. With fire, pride, and desire. Then, yes. And she kissed him. In public. Boldly. Lovingly. And all of London had to learn to applaud them, or step aside. 3. The new guest. Days later. During a soiree at the Ashberrys' home. Luciana chatted with Isabella while Rhys and the Earl discussed judicial reform. Do you think it's all over now? Luciana asked. Isabella took a sip of wine. Then smiled mischievously. For you too, yes. For my sister, it's just beginning. Luciana turned. And then she saw her. A young woman at the entrance. Beautiful. Elegant, but with eyes full of secrets. She wore white. Held a sketchbook under her arm. And was arguing, in a very firm and thoroughly improper tone, with one of the most arrogant libertines in London. Who is she? Luciana asked. Isabella smirked with playful delight. Lady Juliet. And him? Lord Thorne. Youngest son of the Duke of Marlington. He's insufferable. And perfect for her. Luciana narrowed her eyes, watching them argue from a distance, like two storms about to collide. This is going to burn. Isn't it? Darling, this is just getting started. A new melody begins to play. Coming soon. A new story. A new rebel. A new libertine who has no idea what's coming. Thank you for joining me in this beautiful story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did sharing it with you. If you liked it, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Whispers by Maga Audiobooks, so you won't miss any of my future releases. Until next time, and may the magic always be with you.